Hello, freaks. This is Parallel Frequencies. You are here with Jess, Blane, and Coco. Well, actually, today it's just Coco. So I don't know if we can call it parallel frequencies or one frequency, or I'll do my best to represent both frequencies today. Blane is traveling, doing some family business today, which means that I am flying solo. So if you watch this show and listen to this show purely to listen to that Tennessee accent and get all the sides to movies and TV shows that Blane has to offer, I'll do my very best, but we all know you're here for me, right? Right? Anyone? Anyone here for me? Well, that's okay. I'm going to talk about a documentary that just got nominated. It's award seasons, y'all. So I'm here to talk about something that really powerfully affected me when I saw it. But before we get to that, let's talk about current events and business. Anybody feeling all of the energetic heaviness of things going on lately? It's okay if you are. I think we would be absolutely remiss not to mention that it's a little bit like trying to show people your passions, your hobbies, offer a little goodness out into the world while a dumpster fire just rolls right behind you. That's kind of what it feels like right now. And that's okay. Someone has to do this work. Someone has to entertain. Someone has to make light of things. And some people have to sit down and deep dive into discussions about TV shows and movies on deep personal level, right? Somebody's got to do it. So why not me? Just know that I am fully aware of the times we are living in. I'm not over here oblivious to it. Let's see. Let's get to it. So for January, a lot of our movies and TV shows we discussed in January had a lot to do with the confrontation around the idea of death or the ending of something, which if you watch my other show, Parallel Frequencies is this show. My other show, Practically Magic, which I've been doing for 3 seasons. A lot of the things that I discuss over there is energetics and cycles and how to understand the cycles that we're in. So without even really meaning to or on purpose doing it, I did sort of plan on talking about death around this time of year. The Yule season or the winter season, as we went from the winter equinox, the winter solstice. It's kind of a time of year to talk about death because everything had died away and getting ready to be comfortable with that kind of darkness, that kind of, it looks like death outside. The trees are all sleeping. They have lost their leaves. So it really kind of fits with the cycles and seasons of the year. The fact that we talked a lot about movies and shows that confront death. What does death mean? What is an egoic death? And some of the characters in the movies and shows that we've talked about are going through that kind of stuff. And so it's appropriate that maybe I finish off or kind of close that circle of movies and shows with Come See Me in the Good Light. For those who have not seen it, I don't think I'm spoiling anything, even if you haven't seen it yet. And it's okay if you need to pause this and go watch it, or you can listen to this and then watch it. It's a documentary. It's a documentary about Andrea Gibson, who was a poet laureate, author, an amazing rock star of a human being who battled cancer and passed away, sadly, just a few months ago. But the documentary follows them and their wife, Megan Falley, who's also a poet, and what it's like to confront death from the perspective of someone who has such a deep connection and understanding of life. I mean, who better than artists, writers, painters, poets, actors to reflect humanity back to us in their art form? And if you are familiar with Andrea Gibson's poetry, that's exactly what they do. They represent life and living. They joke in the documentary a lot that they didn't have a wide vocabulary because Megan Frawley has a very, very wide vocabulary and does a lot of intense edits in her work. But Andrea's like, I've been building houses with nothing but a screwdriver, in that they only know 5 words, but they have been able to create poetry and artwork that resembles life in such a deep and meaningful way. And I can appreciate that. It's kind of like poetry for the common folk, much like Robert Burns in Scotland was known for writing poetry in the language of the common people. And we can all appreciate that. We don't always love an elitist representation of things, something above the level of our usual speech. And that's where slam poetry is really fascinating and fun to watch. I loved in the documentary when they did flashbacks of moments in Andrea's career where they were on stage passionately reciting their poetry with all this fervor and, talking about the experiences they were going through at different times of their life. And I think that's where slam poetry kind of meets an art form, much like improvisation or dramatic monologue. I have some experience in that area. I used to do theater, and in high school, I did the old theater competitions. And when I graduated high school, I got to graduate to being a theater judge, which gave me a lot of new perspective on what it means to look at different performances of art and basically judge it, right? So the experiences of being able to see if high school students have the ability to bubble up deep, vulnerable feelings in a performance, especially in a dramatic sense. Are they willing to break the shell of, does this look stupid? And what if I just let loose and let it all out? This is a documentary about someone dying, but in reality, it's actually a documentary about living life. And I'll try to play Blane's part here a little bit and tell you some background information on the making of this movie. Some of the executive producers in this movie are some of my absolute favorite people on the planet. Brandi Carlile, who also recorded a song special for this documentary that was amazing. I love Brandi Carlile's music too. I mean, music in the background of a beautiful, beautiful movie like this. Oh, I have a robin sitting outside my window looking at me right now. Hi, Robin. I wish I could show you, but I can't. It's just kind of sweet. Brandi Carlile. Let's see who else. My absolute favorite comedian of all time, hands down, got me through some very hard times in my own life watching the specials. Tig Notaro. Tig, if I ever get to meet you, I think I might faint. Yeah, Tig is absolutely one of my favorite comedians of all time. I think she is hilarious. I'm a big fan of her podcast with Fortune Feimster and Mae Martin. If you haven't noticed already, I like a lot of art being performed by lesbians and queer folk. They just seem to know how to do it. I don't know. I can't explain it. It just is what it is. Glennon Doyle and Abby Wambach are also executive producers on this film. I was very excited to see that it was nominated for an Academy Award, although I don't put a whole lot of stock into the politics that go behind which movies and shows get nominated for the Golden Globes and Emmys and the Academy Awards, but it is kind of fun. And it does give me a list of projects to think about for the future. Things that are nominated are great ideas for what to watch next, right? I was really glad to see this was nominated and that I had actually already seen it instead of, oh, I guess I was nominated, I better go watch it. I felt like I had leveled up in sophistication that I had watched this before it was nominated. But as I feel really high and mighty about that, I will just admit right here and now, because we're the only ones listening, right? You're not going to tell anybody. You're not going to make fun of me, right? If I tell you this, I actually did not know who Andrea Gibson was before this documentary and before Tig Notaro, my favorite comedian, introduced them. And, I found out through her, which makes me a poser, an absolute loser. I understand. I fully bow down to the people who have been Andrea Gibson fans for their entire career. I'm sorry. And all I can say is I'm a huge fan now. So forgive me, please. And I'm just never been one of those that's like, I was the first person to know that band, or, that makes me better in some way. Just don't subscribe to that. I'm like, hey, if we're fans now, we're fans. And it's great. So this is really a documentary about living life. And I think I had to watch it maybe 3 or 4 times because obviously the very first time I watched it, I cried like a baby. And as a Pisces, I'm wearing my 2-fish sweater right now for representing Pisces. As a Pisces, I'm an emotional person. So just connecting with something emotionally is a good thing for me. So when some people say, well, I cried when I watched that movie, it was awful. I cried and I loved it. A good emotional release is not a bad thing in my book whatsoever. I want to kind of reiterate some quotes that were said during this movie. One from the very beginning that really kind of hit me hard. When Andrea says she's talking about the medication and the treatments for her cancer, and that some of the side effects are really tough to live with. Like she loses her sense of taste. She loses the taste buds. And she says, I would live the rest of my life without taste buds just to get to live the rest of my life. And it kind of goes back to, it's interesting that while I was watching this documentary, at the same time, I was also going through the series, The Big C, with Laura Linney as the main character. And she's finding out she has cancer and that it's terminal. It's not treatable, which is where we meet Andrea in the documentary. Is they've been fighting with cancer for quite a while, and then find out it's in the bones and it's not treatable, and coming to terms with that. And it's interesting how a fictional character, obviously in the series, The Big C, versus this real life story that Andrea is living. For people who are going through something like this and make the choice to go with the treatments, to fight, to go to battle, this idea of the warrior. And I love that image, but I also want to point out that for people who make the choice not to seek treatment, that might want to say, I've accepted my fate, and rather than deal with a short-term living diagnosis, a projected time that I might survive this, I would rather want to feel really good during that time and live my life to the fullest rather than be sick on medications and live a little longer. And I think that both choices, to fight or to accept, are very brave and really offer a chance for each individual person to acknowledge what it would be like to fully live your life every single day, no matter how few days you have left. And I think I have a real, I don't want to say the word good, but I have a really comfortable relationship with the idea of death because in studying secular Buddhism and other types of spirituality, I think that facing the idea of death is facing the inevitable and the uncertainty. It's learning to be comfortable with uncertainty, really. I once heard a story, I think it was a secular Buddhist teacher that I was following at one point in time, Noah Rasheta is his name. He has a podcast, Secular Buddhism. And he was telling a story about a friend who just found out he had terminal cancer. and had, maybe months to live. And he was meeting with this friend for lunch, and he says, "What is it like? What is it like to know that you're dying?" And the friend looked at him and said, "I could ask the same of you. You could die tomorrow. You could be hit by a bus. Anything can happen to any of us. Just because I have a diagnosis doesn't mean that, I have a shortened life term than you or anyone else. Death is inevitable. The only things that are certain in life is death and taxes." I think it was Benjamin Franklin said that. And, to some extent, that's really something to think about. We are all walking each other home is another great phrase that I've heard. Death is something we're all having to face. And some people are more comfortable with talking about it and facing that within themselves and understanding their own mortality. Some people are very much avoidant of the topic and don't want to look at it. And you see all of this playing out in this documentary between Andrea and their wife, Megan, their conversations, the showing of love that they have for each other, and how there's these incredible ups and downs as they navigate this testing that they do. They do this pathogen testing where the markers for cancer are numbered. And if the number is a certain number or higher, it means that those cancer cells are growing. Potentially the treatment's not working. And so every 3 weeks, Andrea is tested for the pathogens in her body and to see if the cancer cells are growing or if the treatment is working or not working. And so you see the devastation on their face when they get a high number, and what that potentially means. And it's kind of like getting that initial diagnosis all over again. So you kind of go on this roller coaster of emotions. Is there hope? Is there not? All the while, Andrea is experiencing great physical pain and symptoms from the medication or the treatment, and you really do get to experience it with them. I was interested to see kind of the symbolism. I'm not even exactly sure what the symbolism is for these things, but I like to play with the idea of symbolism in any movie. And I'd love to hear, listeners, what you have to say about what you think the mailbox represents in this story. Andrea, and it might just be comedic relief because this is actually a very funny movie. I know you wouldn't expect that from a movie or a documentary about someone dying, about their death, but they are mixing in real life humor with this story of the grief and the processing and the acceptance of Andrea's failing health. But you have the mailbox, and Andrea is going out. Just, it feels like from what they show, and this may just be editing, but they go out to fix this mailbox. They're like, I have this, radiator. I'm trying to remember what it is. In the Christmas Story, the dad is fighting with is the radiator or the, whatever it is, the boiler down in the basement. Anyway, Andrea is having to fix this mailbox because it keeps getting knocked over again and again and again. And they're like shoving rocks, and it just becomes this whole thing. And they're like, they won't deliver the mail unless this mailbox is set up appropriately. And it keeps getting knocked over by the snowplows. It's fighting with this mailbox. And it gives kind of a real life situation. This is real life, guys. I mean, we all have something that's just that thorn in our side, stuck in our craw. Like, we can't seem to get past this thing. This is just so frustrating, and it's beyond our control. And maybe that's what the mailbox represents. It's just this thing in our lives that we don't have control over, and we have to live with, and we have to find the humor in it, and we have to learn to deal. So I love that aspect about it. I also want to point out that this is really a love story. As we go into February, we're going to be talking about a lot of movies and TV shows that have to do with couples, relationships, romance, and some really great horror movies coming up, guys. So wait till the end, and I will tell you the next movies and TV shows to watch to get ready for our next series of when we come back. But the love story between Andrea and Megan in this is really, really touching and wonderful, and the kind of thing we would all love to see in our own lives whenever we're going through something hard, whether it's, a terminal illness, mental illness, to have a relationship of support the way that Megan has for Andrea is really touching, because she represents kind of this calm, hopeful, grounding presence. And that allows Andrea a lot of freedom to feel all of her feelings in this roller coaster, to be scared and to be sad and to be devastated and to be hopeful, and all the while doing this roller coaster and also feeling lots of physical pain and what she's going through. Andrea's mentioned several times that Megan is kind of that she doesn't worry. Megan just doesn't worry. She just seems to be, obviously she feels a great deal of feelings and love, but she kind of describes it as, why waste my time and energy worrying about things that I can't control, rather than being present here where I can be. Throughout the film, you see Andrea and you hear Andrea with voiceovers reciting poetry. And it is kind of a building up to the climax of the movie, which is Andrea doing their last live show, that they had to get to a point where their health was good enough, but not to a point to wait too long to where it's declining again, and actually put on a good old slam poetry show that they used to do when they were touring, realizing now that they won't be touring ever again, but couldn't see themselves not doing at least one last live show. And that was, again, also very powerful to watch, the love of the performance, the love of the art, the love of poetry that they have. And I love when Megan says that Andrea never did poetry, never did what they did to get. It was to give. And, I think we can all get wrapped up in the whole, what am I getting out of this? When is it going to pay off for me? We can all feel that way. Certainly I do at times. But to do something like your passion, your art, your thing, your purpose for being on this planet, simply because that's what you want to give. That's what you want to give every day. Andrea shows that so well. And it kind of makes the audience, at least I hope so, I hope everybody watching Come See Me in the Good Light was thinking to yourselves, how do I approach my life differently so that I am aligned with that in my own way? How am I showing up in a way that gives to the world and is truly authentic to myself and lives better? And I'm going to offer a little bit of a warning here. So if you are sensitive to the topic of suicide, I'm going to touch on it just a little bit here, because I don't think that you can talk about this without mentioning some of the struggles that Andrea talks about going through. And one of the things I really want to do, in fact, I'd love to dedicate this episode to an organization that Blane and I have been kind of on the outskirts of helping and promoting and being associated with, is Promise to Live. So if you have not had the chance, I'm going to invite everybody listening right now to go check out promise2, that's the number 2, live.org. And you will see the organization that was set up by Brandy Vega that has to do with getting more information and resources and awareness out there to people who are survivors, who are people who struggle, suicidal ideation and mental health, finding the resources that need to be available to people readily, that when someone is suffering, they shouldn't then be having to suddenly scramble to find help or to find resources that can help. And that's why Promise to Live was born, to help people. And so one of the reasons I mention this is because in the movie, Andrea talks about having times in her life that were really hard and that they went through struggles, and how fascinating it is that when they were diagnosed with cancer, when they were told that they had only so long to live, that approach or that mentality of what they felt earlier in their life, wanting to die, was now, I don't want to die, I want to live. And how impactful that was. So when I say this movie is not really about dying, it's about living. It's about living and loving better. Andrea talks about the diagnosis of cancer being the catalyst for living, for giving themselves and everyone else permission to live better. So they recite a lot of their poems in this. One of my favorites is Goosebumps, or there's Andrea says they hold the world championship for number of goosebumps. And the poem going along with that is everything in their life that gives them goosebumps. It's incredible. But one of the other poems, Tincture, I wrote a quote that I loved here. The soul misses the subbed toe. The soul misses the funny bone and misses every day the body was sick. I mean, these are things that we take for granted, right? The body has to experience so much pain in our life, from emotional pain to physical pain, all kinds of pain. We stub our toe, we bang our funny bone, we get sick. In that poem, Tincture, I talk about how the soul misses those things, which brings forward a whole feeling of gratitude for life that we wouldn't otherwise have if we didn't realize that when the soul leaves the body, when we move on, or whatever happens after life, nobody really knows, but the soul would miss those things. And if the soul would miss those things, if we believe that that's possible, and I'm not saying you have to believe that it exactly is that way, because who knows? Nobody can tell us for sure. But if it's possible that that is what happens, that the soul could be missing those parts of living and life, then what would we do now with our lives if we were fully present and aware of experiencing every moment as if it was our last? The most mundane, everyday things could become incredibly magical. Everything can be seen through the eyes of a poet, even if we aren't poets. I think in order to create art like Andrea did, we kind of do have to see every moment as if it is our last. Being able to observe and then fully feel everything in that moment, just feel it. And we can complain about a lot of things. We can complain about the state of the world. We can complain about our bodies. We can complain about the aches and pains. We can complain about our kids, about the dogs barking. We can complain about how tired we are. And yet we can also say that it's possible that the soul will miss all of that. And I think that's what this documentary is really about. And it's kind of offering us an example of not waiting for dying to live better, to live in happiness, to choose happiness. And so I just want to give everybody an opportunity to express the feelings and thoughts that came up for you when you watched this movie. I would love to hear your insights. I would love to hear in the comments what impact watching this documentary had on you. And I invite you, even if you don't feel like you are an emotional person, to watch it with the full intention that you're going to give yourself permission to cry if you need to, and if that feels good to you. Because I think we all need that once in a while, and this is a great movie for that. I'm really proud of everybody who worked on this project. If I knew them personally, I would give them huge props and hugs and things to say, way to go. Thank you for making something like this to carry on Andrea's legacy. and to make the world stand up, open our eyes, open our ears, and listen. I think it's a beautiful work of art. I love the fly on the wall, intimate style of filming it that they did. And I'm a big fan of Andrea and poetry. And who knows, maybe it'll inspire me to start creating more poetry, as I love to do. So, all right, friends, I told you to stick around, so please make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube channel, Parallel Frequencies, so that you can get access to what's coming up next. And when we talk about the next shows that we're going to be doing and movies that we're going to be talking about, we are going to be taking breaks throughout our daily show because, Blane and I realized that we need time to prepare for the wonderful discussions that we're going to have on our show, but also because we want to do some throwback, bring back some of the previous content that we've recorded and give some shout outs to those things coming up. So here's what I'm going to do for you next. We're taking a bit of a break from filming while Blane is traveling, and what I want you, your assignment, listeners and freaks, is to watch the 3rd episode of Pluribus. Now, I know that you have already watched the entire season. If you started episode 1 with us, where we talked about episode 1 and episode 2 of Pluribus, I doubt you've had the self-control to be able to just wait on watching episode 3 and 4 and 5 and all the way through season 1. Because if you're anything like me, that show is entirely bingeable. You just have to binge it all. But just in case you haven't, you'll want to watch episode 3. We're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about the movie The Life of Chuck, talking about death and life. I'll be honest, these ones were my picks. Now listen, I watch all of Just Blane's horror movie genre, everything he brings to the table. I'll watch it. I'll be happy to do so. But some of the ones coming up, they're my picks. So give me a shout out. Give me some support here and say, I love these picks if you loved them. Life of Chuck. We're going to be watching for Wistful Wednesday, going back quite a bit. One of my favorite movies of all time, is A Life Less Ordinary. Ewan McGregor and Cameron Diaz. So that's a throwback. Of course, we're going to be doing Thursday, Just Blane's Trailer Park. That's all him. He gets to pull out all of the cool new trailers of some podcasts and we get to discuss it. So that's always on Thursdays. Stay tuned for that. And then we will be talking about the horror movie Deadstream, filmed right here in Utah. So that's what's coming up. Please check out those shows and movies beforehand. You can watch them right along with us. And then when our episodes come out, you'll be ready to click and watch. So don't forget to subscribe so you can see them when they pop up. It'll make sure you don't miss an episode, and it'll help us extremely to grow our presence and give more content to you. If you love being a freak, comment, like, share. It's free for you and it's great for us. So please do it. We've loved having you. I've loved sharing all of my insight and wisdom, if that's what you want to call it, right here from my cave and recording. We'll be seeing Just Blane back after his travels, and hope he's traveling safe. With the winter storms out and about, we want to make sure he gets home safe. And back to recording. We've missed him. I would have loved to hear his insights today, but I'm super happy to have you join me. And we'll see you next time.